Alright, let's get a new 30-minute game going. We've got the black pieces this morning. Likely to see 1e4. You never know with these things. 1c6, the caro-kann. d4, d5, our opponent's taking up the whole center. It's wonderful. We get the advanced variation. We'll get our bishop outside of the pawn chain before closing up. And here, I think the move is to take immediately. Normally, I like to get my knight out to e7 and then place the knight on f5, like forcing them to take. But I don't think that's an option here. So we'll trade, they'll take back with their queen, and we'll close up our center. Nothing too crazy for the start. We'll likely play c5 next, opening up this nice c6 square for our knight. h4, I think. Sort of threatens some kingside maneuvers. I think the move might be to play h5 or h6. That does leave a nice outpost for their dark squared bishops. Maybe I'll play h6 just to curb that development there. I don't want their dark squared bishop to come out to g5. It seems like a very annoying idea. Next we'll be able to play c5. If they take, we'll take back with our dark square bishop. Well, up takes, and then I think knight out first to block this check on b5. Actually, maybe we do want to get our knight out first. Maybe we want to get castled before pushing c5, or get a knight out. Yeah, this seems like a good idea. Although, I guess we could push first. They can't play c3 now to reinforce, now that they placed their knight on c3. So I think pushing seems like a good idea. And if they take, we'll hold off on taking back. We'll play knight to c6 first. Get castled. Okay. Knight to c6. Preventing this check on this queen to b5 check. That's a sort of a gross idea that I don't want to contend with. And then we don't have the option to take here because they got their dark squared bishop out. I suspect that our opponent has seen a caro-kann before. They're playing this very well. I think what we could do is take this pawn on e5, now that we've sort of shattered our opponent's pawn center, out, and then just back real quick. Yeah, that doesn't seem like the end of the world. Might see queen, and then knight back. This b7 pawn is a weakness, something to be aware of. Long castle, alright. We should go ahead and get castled as quickly as possible. I like knight out to f6, bishop out to f7, just getting these pieces out of the way so we can get castled very, very quickly here. This also gives us the option, well, we don't really have the option of knight to e4, because after, well, we especially don't have it now because of pawn takes, but after knight takes, pawn takes, and they have rook takes queen on d7, which, of course, I don't care for very much. Let's develop our dark squared bishop somewhat modestly, and then we can get castled ourselves, and then I think begin sending our pawns. If we can, send our pawns up. Okay, they take. We'll get castled. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. This knight is hanging. That knight is hanging. Don't care for that. We could move out to a5. We could move over to e5. Both, I think, decent spots for the knight. It was a close one. We almost lost our knight there. e5 seems not a lot of spots to go from e5. the same time, a5. I guess a5 is protected by our queen, so we don't need to worry about anything. Yeah. That hits their queen. And then maybe we have something like knight over to c4, hitting their hanging dark squared bishop and threatening some kingside attacks on their long castled king. Move check. We can move our knight over here so we don't have to forfeit castling rights. That looks good to me. They push. I think we should castle here. Seems like we're likely to lose this piece. Regardless, we can't really play rook to b8 because then they have pawn to c7, forking our queen and our rook. Although I guess in response to that we have queen takes on c7. But realistically, I think we need to castle to get out of this mess. So we'll lose the knight, and then we'll make some decisions about what we need to do next. If they want to push, we can take, I believe. But I think probably taking the knight is the best move here. Simple, aggressive move from our opponent, yeah. Okay, so let's figure out what to do next. Knight over to c4 looks like a good idea, hitting their hanging bishop and threatening some attacks. Pawn up to a6, kicking out their queen, and permitting us to capture this pawn. We can't capture the pawn right now because it leaves our queen hanging. If we play knight to c6, that does prompt their dark squared bishop to move, and one concern was bishop out to b6, but fortunately the square is guarded by this pawn. Oh, and it would be guarded by our knight too. So I like... Yeah. Knight to c4, adding another defender to the b6 square and hitting their dark squared bishop. This allows us to play pawn to a6, kicking out their queen, and should... well, I guess they can move their queen back to a4. I guess we'll see. Down a piece, not off to an incredible start, but I do like our position well enough, even though we're down a piece. Our opponent hasn't developed two of their pieces, so we have a little bit of an advantage in that regard. And I think we might be able to mount a pretty effective attack right off the bat. So if we get our rook out here, they may move their queen back to a4 to maintain defense of this very advanced d7 pawn. But then we have knight takes on b2, supported by the rook, forking their queen and their rook. So that looks like a really good move there. I like the sound of this. They've also moved their dark squared bishop to a spot where it can't activate quite as easily because it's hemmed in by this knight here. So expecting to see queen back to a4, trying to maintain defense of this d7 pawn. I think probably they just need to let the pawn go is probably the move. They play something a little bit different. Queen to a6, hitting or hanging a7 pawn. So we can take here, and then we still retain this nice either knight or rook takes on b2. I like knight a little bit better because it hits this rook and forces it to move perhaps to a worse position. Let's go ahead and pick up this pawn and reinforce our a7 pawn. It's looking good. Knight down to b5 seems like a nice idea, although I suppose we can just take it. Okay, they push b3, somewhat weakening their king side. That does permit bishop out. Ooh, that looks nasty. Bishop out to a3 check, supported by our knight. Their king needs to move to B1. And then we can get our knight out of the way with check. I guess they take. But then we have sort of a pretty substantial threats, and that also helps us handle, well, let's see. We need to consider thoughtfully, what do we do with our bishop after this? So bishop out with check. King has to move. Knight takes with check. Probably rook recaptures. And then we need a way to reinforce our bishop. So we could play like, no, we can't play queen up to d6 because their queen will take it. We could play our queen over to e7 to support our bishop, and then potentially come up to b4 in a moment to infiltrate. That looks decent to me. Let's mount this attack on their king. King moves. Now looking at this position, is there anything else we can do that looks nasty? We have rook takes check, but I think they can recapture without too much hassle. That doesn't look like it poses any issues, so I think we'll trade our knight for their bishop. They'll come up and take, and then we'll reinforce our hanging bishop. There we go. Now we have this nice mating net. Then maybe we can drive their queen out further with... Rook to b6 does drive their queen out, but we're not arranging our pieces on an open file, so that doesn't look quite as good. Could get our queen up. Actually, let's see. Where does their... Once we play rook to b6, where does their queen go? They have a number of squares. So rook up to b6. All of these are out. Or I guess, yeah, all these are basically impossible. Queen down, loses the queen, loses the queen. These all lose the queen. This loses the queen, loses the queen. So they have d3 available. They can't take. And then they have, what is this? a4 and a5 available. If they move up to a5, we have this fork, which looks nice. But I don't love the idea of doubling up on the B file. Well, there aren't really any open files. If anything, the C file looks the juiciest because it has this backwards pawn. Yeah, so maybe we get our other rook into the game, hitting their knight. We can do that first. And then maybe come up like this to do the doubling of the rooks. Maybe we drive their queen out first, rook over to c8, and then double up on the c file. Let's do it like that. Yeah, let's get a rook off the back rank with tempo. Probably queen to d3 looks like a decent move. Yep. And then we'll get our other rook involved on c8. They have this check available to them, queen to h7, but they don't have anything to support it right now, so I think we're safe in that regard. And then we can mount a decent attack on their king. Although they do have all their pieces pretty much involved in the game right now. All that's remaining is to maybe double their rooks. They play g4, perhaps preparing to deal with this pawn, and then threaten for real. Queen to h7 checkmate, supported by the rook if that exchange goes poorly. So So I think if they push down, we can push back. And then we have nothing to worry about. Let's double our rooks as planned. And then get our bishop out, maybe to b4 to start trading off some pieces. Or I think we have the advantage there because they have 1, 2 defenders, and then we'll have 1, 2, 3 attackers. And I don't see a way they can bring another piece to bear. Okay, so we push here. This trading is not in our favor. And if they want to push here, I think we can push f6. Let's take a moment to analyze that. So if we take, they can take, and they have this very advanced queen, and they can take our h5 pawn. But if we push here, this pawn actually inhibits our opponent's plans to attack on the h7 square. So I like pushing f6 here. This does make the e6 pawn a little bit of a weakness, so we might consider pushing both of these up. Honestly, yeah, I mean, if we push these up, that adds another attacker to the c3 square, which I think is a weakness in our opponent's position right now. Moving the knight out of the way, I think, looks decent. Okay. So they bring their rook up to h3, perhaps threatening to push f3 and then add another defender that way to their knight. But we can sort of force the issue. I guess we could play e5 first, and then if they push, we'll have d4 before they can do anything. Yeah, so I think we push e5 first. They push, we push back, and then we win this exchange, I think. I'll need to count attackers and defenders. We also have the option, if they push, we can push with our e4 pawn. Okay, so we've got 20 minutes on the clock. Let's look at both of these concretely. If we push d4, we're attacking their knight. We have 1, 2, 3 attackers, and 1, 2, now 3 defenders. So we can't attack profitably, but we would potentially, I guess we would trade 2 rooks for a queen and a knight, which I think is a good deal. If we push e4, we move their queen maybe out of the way 1 square, and it still retains contact with this knight, so I don't think that actually does anything for us. So I think, yeah, we can push d4. Yeah, let's push d4. And then kick off this trade. And now if they take, we can take back. And, okay, they play out their knight to d5, hitting our queen. We can, well, let's see. First of all, is it threatening to go anywhere dangerous after this? These are all the knight squares. These both lose the knight. This loses the knight to our bishop. This is where it came from. That loses the knight to the pawn. Loses the knight to the pawn. There's a piece there. Loses the knight to the pawn. So really the only dangerous square it's threatening to go to is e7, forking our king and our rook, which of course I don't want to happen. So I think just moving up a square, maintaining defense of this e7 square, and hitting their knight seems to be the right move. So let's keep an eye on e7 while we attack their knight. And then maybe we're about to win a piece back, because I think their knight doesn't actually have anywhere to go from here. So they'll need to counterattack. That doesn't look very good. I don't see a way that they can do this without losing material. Okay. Yep. Queen to f3, reinforcing the knight. I don't think we have... I guess we could play e4 here, hitting their queen. But perhaps more forcing is... Well, no. Rook to c3 loses the rook to the knight, and then we have... Yeah, I don't think that quite works out. Okay, so e4 looks pretty good here. Cutting off contact between the queen and the knight, and hitting their queen. So that looks good to me. And it's supported by our queen, and will continue to be supported by our queen. All right, so they lose control of their rook, but they are threatening checkmate here. We can move our king to f8 to get out of the way. But even then, oh man, they have this knight guarding e7. Oh, tough. Okay. So we've got this risk of queen to h7, checkmate. How do we mitigate it? I actually don't know if we can. f8 is the only square we can move to. Queen to h7. Well, we can move to f8. And then, yeah, queen to h8, we have queen to g8, so forcing a queen trade. Do we have any checks available to us? I don't think so. Although I guess queen to h7, we still have king to f8, and then queen to h8, we have queen to g8. And I don't think they can do anything about that. That basically forces a queen trade. What about this, this, this? They lose their queen if they do that. Okay. So we need to keep our queen on e6, but we do have the opportunity to escape here. So what can we do in the meantime to threaten our opponent's position? Knight up to c5 looks good. We could threaten a rook with like e3. And if we can drive away this rook, then we can take on c2 in a moment. That looks pretty good. Takes. Yeah, let's go for that, and then trust in our defensive resources that our opponent does not actually have checkmate here. Expecting to see queen to h7, check. This will be like a scary and forcing line, but I don't believe they have checkmate here. And they're putting their pieces in somewhat more danger. Although they are up a piece, so the queen trade certainly favors our opponent. It's very exciting stuff. Thought they had me there. Okay. Oh, wonderful. I was just looking at this. This looks like a very nasty fork. And potentially draws the queen off of the very important e7 square where we do need the queen. But we have our bishop out there on a3, so they just lose the piece. Simply lose the piece. How lucky for us. Okay, so material is even again. They are up a pawn. They take our hanging pawn. Still the threat of queen to h7 persists. So I want to be cautious about that. We do have rook takes on c2, hitting their hanging knight and threatening checkmating operations on their king. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So up here, they can't do anything with their rook because they will lose it to our rook on the back rank. So let's take this pawn. I don't believe our opponent has an attack here. I think we are in the clear. And then I think that's going to be... Oh, no. So they have their knight guarding the square. So we can't quite do that. Now this is fraught. let's see. We can't move our queen off of the e7 square because we still need, in response to queen to h7, king to f8, queen to h8, we need queen to g8. So our only option would be to do something that comes with check. We could potentially check here. Rook takes, king takes, queen takes, rook, and then honestly hope that we can checkmate their king, which doesn't seem super appealing. And that trades us 2 rooks for a rook and a knight, so that puts us down. Other options, rook over like this, king takes, bishop over with check, king takes. That doesn't look very good. I think we probably do have to take here. And then, I mean, if they move up or something, then I think we have rook to c2, and that's checkmate because our bishop is guarding this a3 escape square. So I think this is something we have to do, and just hope that we can find checkmate, because our queen doesn't have anywhere else to go along this diagonal that's safe. So I'm expecting to see... Yep. Expecting to see king takes, and then we can get check in. Ooh, they don't take the bait. They do not take the bait. What are we going to do now? What are we going to do now? We have bishop over to a3. They have to take the bishop, and then we have queen over to a6 check. There, I believe they can go back to b2 or out to b4. Let's see, is there any other way to make a forcing move with check? Or any other like escape plans that have opened up to us? King takes, queen, yeah, that's still checkmate. So king doesn't have anywhere to go. Could we open up another escape square somehow? I don't see a way to do that. I guess if we moved our bishop out of the way, does that do it? Then we have queen to h7, king to f8, queen to h8, king up to e7. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I think that's going to have to be the move. So we'll sacrifice a bishop to preserve our king, and we pick up a rook for our trouble. With their rook staring down the d-file, I think this is still very dangerous. But we're playing this as well as it can be played, I think. So that's forced. We take here. Queen to h7 is very likely here. But we've opened up this e7 escape square for king to run away to. Oh. Nope, that's game over. They had a rook move the whole time. Okay. Well, great attack by our opponent. I think I held on as well as could be expected down a piece. Let's see where the critical blunder was. I did not play very well that game. Let's switch to the analysis board. Showing a cool 350 for my game rating. Not incredible work. But we get the caro, advance, trade bishops. This is all by the book. h4, h6. They're saying the immediate c5 is a little bit better here. I think these are all decent moves. Taking is probably a mistake. Yeah, and then that makes sense. Oh, that was a good fork. So pawn to d6 here, supported by both our queen and our knight, was a very strong move here, and that would have won us a piece. Okay, so something to keep an eye out for. Castle, we get our knight out, we get, yeah, the pawn is hanging for a long time. D7 is a miss. Now just moving your king was the right move. I guess, yeah, d7 is a miss because it permits pawn down to c6, just winning our piece outright. Castle, this is fine. We're down a piece. c4 is fine. d2 does strike me as a mistake. We get our rook out, and suddenly we have like a slight advantage, incredibly. Going ahead and taking that pawn was the right move here. And they're saying hitting our rook in response was a good move. Okay, that's interesting. So starting the attack was probably a stronger move than queen to d7. Okay, b3. We land on the right idea. Not quite the right idea. Let's see what the correct follow-up here is. So it's bishop to b6, queen to a4, queen to b7. Oh, and this pawn is pinned. Oh, critical miss on my part. Not able to use this pinned pawn for any sort of operations. They're saying that bishop out is best. Somehow we're able to... Obviously we're able to take without check, but I think we could just as easily take the free bishop. Oh, no, and then we lose our bishop. Okay. But maybe an opportunity to trap the queen here with sort of more aggressive operations. We take their queen. Yeah. Shucks. Okay. Big miss on my part. We did have a slight advantage here, but I missed the ability to trap their queen. Still went for it, but having that knight in the way really gummed up the works. So I think we were close here. This is a lesson from a recent game. I should have spent more time figuring out how to trap that queen, and I think that would have put us in a really good position. Double up our rooks. H5 is a miss. Starting the attack here would have been a better move. A bunch of misses on pawn moves. I'm going to have to go back and review this in a little bit more detail, as I missed a lot of seemingly critical ideas here. Yeah. Where's miss? Yep. Bishop takes e3 is brilliant. Rook takes c1 is not the right idea. It looks like the right move here is bishop back out this way. But then I think they have... Don't they have... No, they don't have this idea because they're... How does this work? Takes bishop out. If they take our queen, then we have mate in 2. Okay, so missed opportunity there. I was too reliant on the queen. And could have reacted with a threat of my own because rook takes queen does not come with check, so I had time to mount an attack. Rook takes c1 is not the right idea. He's forced. Maybe coming out here with check would have been a little bit better. White still has mate in 8 in this case. Yeah, I mean, this is not looking good for black. And then queen up takes... I guess we can pick up a rook. Well, no, then this is checkmate. Okay. So a couple of missed tactics on my part. Should have started an attack earlier and should have spent more time trying to figure out how to trap a queen. I think I had time. If we go back to here, yeah, I certainly had. I had 23 minutes on the clock. I had more time to figure out how to trap the queen. Looking at our opponent's options here, should have made it pretty clear that like these all lose the queen. Rook up, all these lose the queen. Um, that loses the queen. These two lose the queen. That loses the queen. Yeah, so rook to b6. Um, I guess the queen is not trapped in this case because it's protected by the pawn. Their king hasn't moved over to b1 yet. So maybe after a3, king moves is best, and then rook moves, queen moves. Oh, I see. And we can't, even though this pawn is pinned, we can't take yet because their knight is in the way. So we move over here. They make a threat. We make a threat. And they have to give up their... I guess why don't they take here? Is that so much worse for black? They're just giving away the queen outright. I'm not sure I understand why giving away the queen wholesale is the better move. Seems bad. Oh, I guess getting our queen onto a6, we do have this idea of like queen to a3, queen to b2, checkmate. Okay. So I guess spend a little bit more time there in sort of this critical position where their queen is weak and we have all of our pieces activated, figuring out how to get a tactical advantage out of a situation where I'm like a little bit better positionally, but down material. I've got all this room to operate. Like all my pieces are more or less activated. I still need to get my rook into the game, but they're like 2 pieces down basically. So I still have an opportunity here to get some tactics in. Unfortunately, that did not work, and I think I was a little bit too eager to give away my knight, not realizing that this pawn was pinned after their king moved. They moved into the pin. Okay, so something to work on for next time. Maybe I'll study this game more specifically. That's all for me. Have a good one.